Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Super Switch Headz. My name is Patrick Knisley.
My name is Summer Rain.
My name is Jordan Willis.
My name is David Howe.
And on this special episode, we're going to be talking about Nintendo's 2025. We're going to be talking about what we know is coming, what's rumored to come, and what we hope and predict might happen. It's going to be a big year because we are going to be getting, at the very least, a console reveal, if not a release, but most likely a release. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what kind of launch games and timeline we're looking at, or at least what we expect or think. We're going to dig into all of that. So without any further ado, let's do it. I think we're going to...
Can I just say Happy New Year, everybody? I can't believe it's 2025. Happy New Year, listener. I hope this year is a little bit easier going down the old esophagus than last year was. I feel like that was a pretty tough nut to swallow. What's the expression there? How much nut are we swallowing, really, this year? That's a real question. But anyway, yeah, I just wanted to say Happy New Year to everybody. It's been great to have you along for the ride, and I can't wait for a whole brand new year of Super Switch Headz releases going forward.
There we go. Well, I think as we tend to do when we do these annual beginning of the year episodes, we're going to kind of start with what we know is happening from Nintendo. We're going to talk mostly about Nintendo's 2025, but a little bit about video games generally in 2025. But we're going to start with what we know. So coming up very soon, the first Nintendo release is a re-release or an HD, remaster. It's Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, coming out January 16th, just a couple weeks from now. I don't know if there's a whole lot to talk about here. I'm interested in the fact that they patched in 2-player into this, and looking forward to playing it with my son. That's sort of the big draw for me. But I don't know if anybody else cares much about this one. I know there's been a lot of criticism of it too.
I feel like the original Wii version had 2-player though, correct? Is it like the 3DS version that did not, or did they both not have 2-player?
They made it sound like they didn't. I know the 3DS one didn't because we have that one, and obviously that would, unless there was some weird, syncing of it. I don't know the answer to that. We can look it up and then...
No, it's all good. No, either way, that's interesting. And I think it kind of leads to a bigger discussion that a lot of people are having around this game, which is like, what is this game an actual port of? I feel like there's been a lot of controversy around this release. I feel like mostly led by Andre at Game Explain for some reason.
Yeah, they've been really upset about the lack of sound or visual effects or the changes in those things. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. For the more time that goes by, the more I realize how big of a hater Andre it kind of is. And certainly when it comes to this game, it feels like he has specifically a bone to pick with this release for some reason. But it does seem like, there's a lot of changed effects and there's a lot of stuff missing that was in the original Wii release that it kind of feels like it's maybe actually a port of the 3DS re-release of it in and of itself. So either way, it's some kind of amalgam because they've been doing upgrades. They've been doing a whole round of polishing and whatever to this. So I'm actually really interested to play this version of the game, and just because I've now played multiple versions of it myself. I played it on the Wii, I played it on the 3DS, and I played the Wii version emulated on my Steam Deck in HD. So it's so it'll be interesting to see just kind of like how this one fares. But yeah, I don't know how excited the kind of general population is for this release, but feels like Nintendo at the very least has been working their way up to it and is really hoping this is going to be a big hit at the beginning of 2025.
Just real quickly to answer the question, it looks like the Wii version did have multiplayer and that this version is going to have the additional content that was from the 3DS version and have multiplayer. So it makes you think the 3DS version is kind of what they're basing it off of. But we'll see.
Yeah.
So like a definitive version combining those two and upscaling.
Yeah, without the visual effects that they're mad about. Yeah.
Summer, are you excited for this release as a non-Donkey Kong Country fan?
Why are you bringing my attention?
I'm trying to get you into this franchise. I'm trying. Is this your doorway in? you know.
I mean, maybe that question, maybe I should be asking you that question, David, as somebody who doesn't play or necessarily care about Donkey Kong games. Do you think that this is a game for me to play?
I think that, yes, I think that this is a fantastic entry into the franchise. If listeners will remember our Donkey Kong Country ratings episode, we ranked this one dead last, but it's still a really excellent game. So I feel like this is a great first game to play because it kind of only goes up from here, you know. Jordan disagrees, but that's fine.
Yeah, I'm still mad about that, but I'm not going to bring it up on this episode. This is not the right episode to bring it up on. I'm
hoping a lot of people feel the same way and will actually give this one a go, even if they're not familiar with the franchise, I guess is what I'm saying.
Okay. Yeah. It being multiplayer definitely is an attraction.
I think the thing for me is like, who's making this port?
Forever Entertainment. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, I'm just like kind of curious. I mean, it would make sense if it was a 3DS port because that's kind of what they've been doing. Like they've been streamlining that kind of process, I'm sure. Yeah, I don't know. For me, it's like a little too late in the life cycle to like really care too much. But if one of y'all gets it, I will definitely play your copy.
Oh, yeah. I feel that I will not be able to resist the temptation of buying a copy of this from my Nintendo account.
Knew we could count on you.
Well, we can move along to the next dated and the only other dated big first party release. And that's another definitive edition is what they're calling this one. It's Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. That's coming March 20th. So it's another re-release. This is of the Wii U Xenoblade game. I don't know if anybody here is excited about this, or I'm guessing no.
As the resident Xenoblade Chronicles mainline games kind of hater is a strong word, but we'll just say disinterest. A person who is disinterested. I am very excited for this game, mostly because it is quite different from, and that's something that fans of 1, 2, and 3 do need to be aware of, is that this game is quite different. Yes, it exists within the same universe, but it's not. The stuff that you like about 1, 2, and 3 is maybe not what people like about this game. That being said, I had tried to recently go back and play this game. Like right before they had announced this, I had actually gone back and tried to play this game on the Wii U. And I was like, God, I can't play this anymore. I just can't go back to this. So this getting remade for the Switch and getting a ton of new content,
seems that way,
story content. I'm excited as somebody who's a fan of just open world exploration. And this game came out before Breath of the Wild, so just saying, like, originally,
right?
Like,
yeah, I mean this has always been the Xenoblade game that has interested me most out of all of them. Yeah, because I'm a fan of mechs and I'm a fan of the sci-fi setting, and it's like I don't love so much of the kind of like MMO style exploration and combat of Xenoblade, and this seems like it's a little bit of its own thing. Also, as someone who doesn't want to have to put 300 hours into 3 games to get a full story, it seems like this one being a little bit disconnected and its own thing is
it's totally
kind of it makes it a little bit more enticing, I think, to me. I do wonder what this is going to sell to outside of Xenoblade Chronicles fans, but it's nice to see all of the games all on this one system. It's very satisfying to have this release finally coming out, and it is kind of one of like the last lingering Wii U games to not get some ports. I do think, and we'll talk about this in predictions, but I do think that we'll be getting some more surprises for the Switch over the course of 2025 in probably the form of some of those remaining ports. But this is great to see. I'm excited. Yeah, we'll have to get some of our Xeno heads on whenever this game comes out in order to get their opinions on it, because this is going to be a tough, a big behemoth that we'll have to crack at some point.
I don't know. I want to play this game. I've wanted to play all the Xenoblade Chronicles games, but I have a very hard time sinking into that being like, oh, I'm going to spend 100 hours with this game at least. And then reading in this game, I remember when it came out, people were like, yeah, it takes you 30 hours just to get the mech that's on the cover. And I'm like, oh, great. Okay. So some RPGs are 30 hours entirely. So this one is like, oh, you don't really even start fully the game until 30 hours in. Anyway, so I was like laughing watching David talk about this, being like, this might be the one that finally gets me in. And I'm like, David, you don't get the mech for 30 hours. No disrespect. I don't think you got it in you, bud.
Look, it's, you got to have a little bit of hope somewhere in the world, even if it doesn't come to fruition, it's the one thing keeping me strung along. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love it. That's why I was like, never mind. I'm gonna sidebar that. Never mind.
I will find myself on a deserted island with just my Switch and the 4 Xenoblade Chronicles games. And at that point, I will fully enjoy all 4 of these experiences.
Beautiful.
Well, next up are some games that are slated for 2025, but we don't have any sort of exact time frame on those. And that first one we've got listed here is Metroid Prime 4. What I think was funny is that it's not quite been 5 years, but it's almost been 5 years since they gave us that announcement about the development, restarting and then moving it over to retro. The time this episode comes out, it's just a little shy of that. So I don't know. What do y'all think? Are we excited about this game? When do you think it's going to drop? And do you think what kind of hole in this? Because they're saying it's going to come to the Switch, right? So do we think this is the cross-gen, Jordan?
Definitely a cross-gen. I think this is going to be on both. As far as like when, my gut says fall. Like, I really just feel like if it's not in the fall, it's probably going to be in the summer. I think there's another game in particular on this list that we'll talk about next that might be the fall release, because it typically falls in the fall release slot. But I definitely don't think this is going to be necessarily a launch title, but I think it is going to be one of the games that bridges the gap. I think there's going to be a couple of games that either get like upgraded versions like other consoles have done, and then this might be one where it's like on both, but one is the upgraded version. I am so stoked for this. I think it was me that said, like, I think I was like, this game is like 5 years out when they redid it, and I feel like I'm like, damn, I don't nail things that much, but I felt pretty good about that. I was like, unfortunately, I was right, but I also think they're kind of want to like, it's not going to come out too soon, because if they want to do Prime 1, 2, and 3, they can, but I don't think they want to release Prime 4 before they release Prime 2 and 3 on the Switch console family of systems. So I have a feeling this might be a little bit later in the year, so they can kind of have like a build up. That seems to be what their strategy has been when they're pumping up other franchises.
Yeah. I tend to agree with you. I think it'll be later than summer, though. This feels like a holiday release to me, to be honest, which is funny because I think it's been done for many months at this point. I think the rumor last year was that around like September, I think, and by last year, I mean this year, because we're still recording this in 2024, but and I think around like September, what they basically said was that this game is done. They're just working on like cinematics, right? And I think that this does feel like it's completed, but it doesn't feel like it'll be a launch game. I could be wrong on that, and I think maybe I think I'd maybe like to be wrong on that, and I think that my preferred thing is that we would just get this game right away with the Switch launching in like, say, March, not to jump ahead too much, but I feel like that would be a pretty awesome way to showcase a new system, especially if, like, let's say that the cross-gen version, if they have some sort of upgrade path, or if games just automatically upgrade on the new system, which I think they probably should, it just, it runs at 4K, whether that's utilizing DLSS or whatever, but having a showstopper on your new system right when it comes out the door feels like a pretty good way to do it. Nintendo's already done this before as well with Metroid Dread. That was kind of a showcase for the OLED, it coming out. All the kind of dark, inky blacks of Metroid Dread looked amazing on that handheld when you were using that for the first time. That was like a pretty amazing experience playing that game like the day it came out. So I think that would be my preferred thing, but I kind of feel like they're going to want to push this out a little bit more. But we'll have to see. Summer, do you have an opinion on this? What's your thought on this?
I am just interested in listening. I could see it being like cross-gen, like you've all said. But haven't these games have like historically, when was the last Metroid before the last one? I feel like they've always come out later in the year, like a November, like kind of before holiday. I could be totally making that up. But I feel like in my brain space, I recognize the Metroid games as like a I loved this, and now I'm getting it for someone for Christmas because there's like a month like space in there. So I'm hearing you when you say that you believe it would come towards the end of the year, but that you would love to be wrong and that it would be a launch title, because I think spec wise, this is something that they would love to show off on the new hardware at launch. Kind of being the Breath of the Wild being on both systems.
The Straddler.
Yeah.
Jordan, you also brought up a really good point about the Metroid Prime 2 and 3 situation. You know what I mean? It's like, what, or is that going to happen? You know, but it's like, I feel the same way about that I did about, that I have this whole time about like the Wind Waker and Twilight Princess stuff. You know, it's like, we keep assuming that it's happening and then factoring that into our release schedule for this thing. And I just think there's just no telling if that is or is not actually going to be a thing. So yeah, we'll see. Well, Patrick, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I would really like it to be sooner than later. And I mean, without getting ahead of when that Switch 2 launch is, that makes a lot of sense to me, that it could bridge between the two and be on both. Though we're all assuming that it could also just be one of the last Switch games. You know, everything is going to be on both if it was on the first one, because it's going to be backwards compatible. So maybe it's not a special version that comes out for the Switch 2 or any upgrades. It's just comes out near the end of the Switch. It's the last game or something. I don't know. It's hard to be sure, but if you force me to say it, I would say cross-gen, and or I would like it to be early on in it, but we'll have to get there maybe a little bit later.
Have you played the Metroid Prime games?
No, I actually haven't.
And are you planning on just jumping into this one without having played the previous ones?
I've been planning to play the remaster for a long time. It just hasn't happened.
They do seem like your kind of games, Patrick.
Yeah,
I actually have started it. I have started it, and I just haven't stuck with it. I enjoyed what I started. I just fell off.
I could see you really enjoying. I mean, the remaster is incredible of the first one, so it's definitely worth playing, I think, before it comes out. But you know, they're probably hoping that a bunch of people pick this game up regardless of if they've played the previous game. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of ties into the way that the game plays in general as well.
Well, next up is another big one that I assume a lot of us think might be cross-gen as well, and that is Pokemon Legends ZA, another TBA for 2025 summer. When do you think Pokemon Legends ZA is coming out? And do you think it will be cross-gen, or?
I think it might just be for the Switch, or it's like technically playable on, I mean, yeah, okay. Like if we know that it's going to be backwards compatible, right? It's like my gut says that it's just going to be like a Switch title, but hopefully like more optimized based on what we know from the, Terra leak. My heart is hoping that it is actually like a cross-gen, like for like optimized for the new hardware. Again, kind of going off of like if any lessons were learned based on, because we already know that this game is delayed internally for Game Freak, that Pokemon Company did give them more time to work on this game, which is unprecedented. As not a thing that Game Freak has gotten before. So that means that they asked for more time and actually got it. I hope that means that this is supposed to be for the new Switch, and that means that it'll be coming at launch, because I do think Pokemon Company wants it out as soon as possible. On the other side of that, like if it still needs more time, like give it more time. Happy to wait another however long for finally getting the third installment game for Generation X and Y that we never got. I think they probably want this to be a launch title.
Yeah, I mean, my gut says launch title only for the fact that Pokemon Legends Arceus came out in January, so they might want to like fit it into that same time slot. And then also, dude, like, weren't we supposed to get a Pokemon Gen technically by their old release schedule this past winter?
So this was the first year in like 10 years that we didn't get either a new game or update or like DLC, blah blah blah, for a Pokemon game. So yeah,
that's crazy. So to me, what that says, my gut tells me they want to release a new mainline Pokemon game this fall or winter. and then this would be the early one, because didn't Arceus and Scarlet Violet come out in the same year?
Technically,
They did. Yeah,
because
they
one was
totally did.
January. Mhm.
So like I could see it happening. That I don't know. Just something
I would
says
be
I could see it
so
happening.
mad. I would be so mad if they did that, because like what we were talking about of like, hey, they finally listened and they're finally taking a little bit more time. All of that's squandered if it means that they have a B team on this and they've got their A team like on a Scarlet and Violet sequel or whatever, the next gen coming out at the end of the year. My hope here is that they just hold it. I know Nintendo's gonna want to launch the new Switch with the Pokemon game, and especially if it was an exclusive. You know what I mean? That would get people to fucking buy the Switch too. You know what I mean? People are already gonna buy the Switch too, but they need normies to buy the Switch too. An exclusive Pokemon on launch would definitely get people to do that, right? But let's get real here. This is going to be a Switch game. You know what I mean? I think that it very well could and should be a Switch 2 game, but it had the Switch logo on it. And if we saw the Switch logo on the thing, I think that means that it's coming out for the Switch. Like you said before, Patrick, if Metroid Prime just came out for the Switch, we saw how that game looks. Like, I'm okay, if that is the case. I'll be very disappointed if ZA is only on the Switch, because it's probably going to look like dog water, because that's just what Game Freak does nowadays. And I doubt that they've learned their lesson. And if anything, I find it very likely that if Nintendo does have an upgrade path or whatever for games from one system to the other, this one's just going to be released on old Switch with no improvements on Switch 2. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure they're going to do something fucky like that. But for God's sake, take your time. Even if you're done with it, dude, release it later in the year and then use that as an excuse to release the next gen of Pokemon next year. Give it an extra year of polish if it needs it. Utilize the new hardware, learn the new hardware even better for the next Pokemon gen. I think that's the best way to do it. I really hope that's how they do it. It sounds like you guys really don't think that's what's going to happen, but I think that, I think releasing this much later in the life cycle of the Switch 2 will then only, if you're not getting that big boost of sales at the very beginning, then Pokemon acting as a holiday sales juggernaut, that has always worked, right? And so if you're really trying to get new systems out the door, this upcoming Christmas is a great time to release that Pokemon IMO.
I wish you were right, David, but I think they're going to make another game. I mean, they sold over 50 million copies between Sword Shield, Scarlet Violet. Like, that's it's their cash cow. They're cranking them out.
Okay, let me one last point to bolster my point on this. I think that there will be a lot of momentum with the Switch 2 launch, regardless of Pokemon, right? And I think Nintendo has been holding back a ton of games, and they're going to have more than enough throughout the year. So holding it back, I think, makes a lot of sense in that regard as well.
Okay, one last counterpoint. Okay, so Pokemon Legends Arceus sold about 15 million copies. Okay, that's like chump change in the Pokemon world, dude. Like, and them waiting 2 years after when they were supposed to get a game, because it would be this fall and then next fall and then the fall after that. Absolutely not. They're not going to wait that long to put out a new mainline Pokemon game. I just don't see it. It sells too well. I want you to be right. I just don't think you are.
Let's put some money on it.
It's not personal that we don't think you're right, David.
I know.
We want you to be right as your friend and as like hopes for
Look, as a four agreements enjoyer, I try not to take anything personally, so don't worry about it. Thank you.
Well, there's one more game that's a Switch exclusive. It's not really a Nintendo first party game, but Professor Layton and the New World of Steam is another 2025 game that's undated. And I don't know that Nintendo has a whole lot of say in when that comes out and if y'all even care about it, but I felt like we should mention it. Summer cares about it.
I do care about it. And when we were talking about games that are likely the last games to actually come out on the Switch, I do think this is going to be one of those. I think it's going to screw up its sales for that reason. Like, historically, there's always a game like that. And then in 3 years, we're going to be like, why didn't anyone play this game? Yeah, it's because we haven't had a Professor Layton game in how many years, and people forgot about it. And then you put this game out literally when we knew a new Switch was coming out, and nobody money, blah blah blah.
Yeah, this feels to me like a Luigi's Mansion for the 3DS releasing like well after the Switch was already out. You know, like I feel like this will come out and be like, well, they should have just really made a better version for the Switch 2 or whatever. But here we got this game. And it does fine for the small audience of fans that are already Professor Layton fans. But we'll see. I mean, I see this coming out like June, something like that, like for the Switch, like July, maybe after the Switch is already out a couple months, if it drops in March. But maybe we'll get to that here in just a moment.
Yeah, and then I think we should cover a couple of the rumors and maybe talk about if we think they're true and where they're coming out. The one that we've been hearing recently is Kirby Planet Robobot. I don't know if we believe this. I tend to believe this based on the source, and it just feels right. And I could see this coming earlier in the year, like maybe a February slot personally. I don't know if anybody else agrees or disagrees.
Totally.
Yeah, don't Kirby games typically also come out close to the end of a life cycle?
Sure do.
Something that we've discussed.
Yeah.
So
I could see this coming out like, I would say I actually would lean closer to March. I think like early March, like maybe even like the same fucking, you know, like a week or so before the new Switch launches. You know what I mean? Like, again, I'm putting too many eggs in the March release basket for the Switch right now. But I say March. I say Metroid Prime 2 in Feb and Kirby in March is what I think.
Yeah, I think that Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe last February was supposed to be that. Oh, maybe that was last year. Man, I'm getting my years mixed up already, guys.
Yeah.
No, I definitely think you're right though. I think this feels like February, early March. Yeah, like literally could be the same week as a release of the new console for sure.
Yeah, and it would be like one of those releases where it's like, we didn't make a Switch 2 version of this game because it's a 3DS game, obviously. But when you play it on the new hardware, it just auto scales up to 4K with the new improved upscaling DLSS feature or whatever. So it's like still a showcase. And it's like, wow, look how good the art design was on the 3DS, that it works even in 4K. Like I can feel like that's going to be kind of the dialogue around this game when it launches. And that's, again, if the rumors are true. This is a big if, but I tend to believe Nate on this one.
Okay.
And we've got the Metroid Prime games, the 2 and 3 that we already kind of talked about. And it sounds like we might all think if that's true, it might be coming earlier in the year, or maybe at least before 4 if they're going to do it, right? That wouldn't make any sense for them to do it the other way around. But
something like maybe like, yeah, what David was saying, like a February for one of them. And then maybe in the summer for the third one. I keep debating internally with myself, like they're either going to do it 2 remasters, kind of like Metroid Prime remastered, or they're just going to do like a 2-pack like Pikmin 1 and 2.
1 and 2.
I was thinking the same thing. I was going to say Pikmin.
Me too.
I can't tell what they're going to do with this because I could see it go either way. But like if they do the 2-pack, it's just going to be dropped all at once, right? So
right.
it just depends how long Metroid Prime 4 has been done and how much time they've had to like work on something like this. Because the way that the Metroid Prime remaster went down, it seems like that was internal at Retro, and that was important to them as a way to kind of like prepare the next engine. To me, it seems like they want to just do that as well. So it just depends kind of like how long has Metroid Prime 4 really been done? Do they have enough time to do this? Or is it more just enough time to just kind of like touch them up, grab and slap them onto the next system? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be grab and slap. But I do think that, okay, here's kind of my prediction here, and I might be completely wrong on this, but we're swinging for the fences, right? Like let's say, I don't even know that this has a likelihood of release. I would put it about 50-50 on if we actually get these, TBH.
Okay.
But I think if it is happening, I think it's happening with all those tertiary studios that worked with Retro on the original Metroid Prime remaster. Because it wasn't just Retro that did that game. I think they set up the engine to work with modern visuals and with a modern system, and they did a lot of in-house stuff themselves, and they laid the groundwork. But a lot of people don't realize, like Iron Galaxy Studio, like did a lot of production work on the original Metroid Prime remaster. A lot of other little tertiary studios as well, including Airship Images Limited, Atom Hawk Designs, Liquid Development. It was a lot of people. It got passed through a lot of hands. And that's mainly because Retro had their hands full with Metroid Prime 4. Now, it is very possible that they could be working on these remasters after having finished development on Metroid Prime 4, and that definitely is possible. I'd like to think, though, that they've already moved on to another project, and that this is probably doled out to some of those partner studios that were working with them before. So in that effect, I think that these will release as a 2-pack, if it is releasing at all, and that it's not going to look like as good because Retro isn't as involved as the original, but I think they still will be more remastered than any of us are anticipating. You know what I mean? It's not going to be just like literally outputted at 1080 like we saw with the Pikmin remasters. There will be a little bit of love in here in the same way that it's like, man, they really shouldn't have called Metroid Prime Remastered a remaster. That was really a fucking remake. You know, we'll be like surprised at the amount of work put into them, but this is probably going to release for $60 for both games or something ridiculous just because they want to get it into as many hands as possible.
We've got a couple more games listed here on our rumored list, but this is where it starts to get into the territory for me of, are these games coming to the Switch or to the Switch 2? And so this might be a little bit of a messy section of end of Switch, beginning of Switch 2 discussion here. But a heavily rumored game for a while has been a remake of a Fire Emblem game of some sort.
Yeah.
And at this point, do we think that that is true? And if it's true, that it's a Switch 2 game instead of a Switch? Because I start to see all things at some point from here on being like Switch 2 games only, or you know, like how many, it gets into that question, how long do we think they're going to support the Switch with unique games that
work on that hardware?
Yeah, exactly.
Something that I have continued to bring myself back on when talking about a Fire Emblem remake game coming to the Switch is that the last Fire Emblem remake game that we got, Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valencia, came out for the 3DS a month after the Switch was already released. Going just based on that, I feel like it's likely that a Fire Emblem remake game, if it's even still coming out, could be still just a Switch title. If we're going off of the leaks that Fire Emblem Engage, or that we got telling us about Fire Emblem Engage, we know that there had already been a Fire Emblem remake game in works alongside that. So I could see it being just on the Switch.
Yeah. I think it makes sense. I think, a Fire Emblem game is not going to be like a huge taxing experience, especially if it's a remake like that. And again, I feel like this is something that's been done for a while. So I can definitely see this releasing on both.
If anything, I see us getting a new Fire Emblem game for the new Switch next year. Right.
Yeah. I think
2026. Because again, just following trends of what their cycle has been a year or two into release. We got Fire Emblem 3 Houses reveal trailer a year after the Switch was out. Then we got it the next year. So I could kind of see it following that timeline.
Right. But honestly, Fire Emblem games kind of release in clumps a lot. Like Three Hopes that was Koei Tecmo game, but it felt like it was pretty close to Engage. And but either way, yes, I think my gut says Fire Emblem remake on Switch, new Fire Emblem on the new system. But I think we should also prepare ourselves for the inevitability that there are games that will very easily be able to run on the original Switch that for no other reason than to boost sales for the new system, they are not going to release old Switch versions of, and I can kind of see this maybe being one of them where it's like, it's not very graphically impressive. It's not, it is like, it looks like a Switch game, but it's a Switch 2 exclusive, like there's going to be a lot of shit like that happening. Like there very well might be a lot. I think that there actually will be a lot of cross-platform releases between Switch and Switch 2 because, again, there are like so many fucking Switches out there, right? So they don't want to, leave that audience in the dust. But I mean, they also do want to sell these new systems. So it'll be strange to see which ones go on which. Again, talking about that Luigi's Mansion for 3DS kind of situation, like there's going to be some frustrations for fans on either side of this. And I do fear that we're going to have a little bit of that discussion that we've been hearing throughout the beginning of this life cycle of like, oh, this game is being held back from its true potential because they want it to release on original Switch. So I'm just not looking forward to that gamer discourse. That's maybe what I'm saying as a prediction. I feel like that's going to be pretty annoying, but I hope Fire Emblem is not at the center of that discourse, but I have a fear that it will be.
Fire Emblem is like at the center of a lot of discourse that isn't related to Fire Emblem anyway. So
That's true.
It's probably gonna happen.
Totally.
I'm looking at you, Super Smash Brothers fans.
Well, the other rumored game we have on here is Donkey Kong. There's been a rumor of a 2D or 3D Donkey Kong game being developed for some time now. And it's been one of those rumors that's been around for a while. So it does kind of, again, make it possible that it could be something that's intended for the original Switch hardware that kind of comes out at the end. But I also could see it be something that they have been, working on and want it to look spectacular and hold for the Switch 2, or it could be cross again. I don't know. Any thoughts on this one?
I want this to be true.
I want this.
The rumor has been going on for so long. I'm starting to lose faith, if that makes sense,
Totally.
But once we were talking about how much they've been pushing Donkey Kong, I kind of like hyped myself up again, but I just can't have my heart broken. I want it to be true. I just don't know if it is.
Yeah. I think this is going to be a Switch 2 exclusive, most likely. The reason I have it in this section is that it's been rumored for such a long time that it kind of makes sense that it would be a Switch release as well. But I just think, again, and I've talked about this so many times, I think the Switch 2 was supposed to be out like last year. And by last year, I mean like 2023. You know what I mean? I think the Switch 2 has been delayed so much that they've got so many Switch 2 games that were developed for Switch 2 that they're sitting on. I think we've got a lot of Switch games like that too. But I think that there are so many games that are going to be exclusives for the next system that are done. And I think the new Donkey Kong is one of them. I think this is going to be a showcase of like massive amounts of foliage and environmental destruction and all this kind of like particle effects and all this kind of stuff that Retro did so well with the Donkey Kong Country sequels. They're going to be pushing that to 11 because that's kind of like what the franchise is known for, especially with this release of Donkey Kong Country Returns, which does a lot of that. Was a huge technical showcase for the Wii, even though it was a 2D side scroller. I think this is going to be a huge showcase for the next system. And this is going to piss off a lot of people that own a regular Switch that aren't going to be able to play it.
What do you think a release window for this game, though, David?
I see this as like a September, October, something like that. Yeah, I think like pre-holiday season, late summer, something kind of like that. I could see them in like the E3 likes that come out really pushing this as like, this is going to be our big release in the next coming weeks or something like that.
Totally.
Before we jump into complete, Switch successor, Switch 2, is there anything that y'all predict that we haven't already talked about or hope could happen for the very end of the Switch and the life cycle of the Switch that might happen early next year or kind of be cross-gen or something like that? Or do we kind of cover it with all these rumors?
I've got a couple. I think Ring Fit 2 will be coming out for the Switch 1, right? I think we'll see it next year.
Really?
I think that I think it's been a long time, but like, I'm also worried that the next Switch is not going to have an IR camera. And a lot of people have those rings.
Interesting.
That will fit just the regular Joy-Cons that are out for the first Switch. So I think in lieu of them releasing a whole brand new, I mean, they probably will also do a Switch 2 version of it with a Switch 2 Joy-Con compatible ring. But I think that they're going to want to, I think a lot of people, that game sold really, really well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that, and that also kind of makes sense post-Christmas. Everybody's put on a bunch of fat from eating all that turkey and chocolate over the whole time. Want to work that off. Seems like an early January kind of surprise that they'll drop in a tweet or something. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The original was just like a random tweet when they were like, hey, look at this weird fucking ring. Like I could see a Ring Fit Adventure 2 coming out.
January, right? Oh no, it was October, but so still like around the holidays though. Yes.
working off Halloween candy, not
Yeah.
Christmas candy.
Yes.
Well, no,
It's-
it was a Christmas present in my household, right? Like
right.
in multiple directions. So like because it came out before the holidays. Yeah.
I've got another one.
Okay.
I think again, little surprise drops. I think it's finally time for Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. I think it's like, I think it's going to be, it might be after the Switch 2 comes out, but like those are going to release. Like, I think it's like, I don't know what it is that's made them wait for so long, but whatever was holding Xenoblade Chronicles X back was also holding these Wii U exclusives back, right? And I don't think it's going to be GameCube NSO either. I think that it will be the digital releases that came out for the Wii U will drop together. Yeah, I think that is happening. And we'll be like, oh my God, it's happening now. And we're all just hyped for the new system. What the fuck is going on? You know? So I do think that will happen.
Yeah, because that's been a historic move of theirs too. Of like, we get something that we like really wanted, but we've kind of already moved on because of new hardware.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about other remaining Wii U games too? I mean, you know, we've talked recently about Star Fox Zero. I mean, that's one of the last ones that could be rejigged, or they're just passing it by completely. What was it? Yoshi's Woolly World?
I was going to
another
say
one.
that one, like not to be annoying because I know we got Yoshi's Crafted World on the Switch, but it is a different game and
an inferior game too.
I think so I thought so too. I was gonna say it and you said it. I thought Yoshi's Woolly World was better.
It's a much better game.
It's more cohesive. Like I get like Crafted like opened it up to more textures, but I thought the cohesion of everything being wool and yarn in Yoshi's Woolly World. Also, Woolly World is just better. It's alliteration. It's better for that reason too.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yes, just playing it, Crafted World just didn't get me in the same way that Woolly World did. And I found myself, they use different musical themes in Crafted. And I was singing while I was playing Crafted, the themes from Woolly World. It's not, we've got a Yoshi. We just also haven't seen a Yoshi game since Crafted. So
if they can bring back Donkey Kong Country Returns after Tropical Freeze, I don't see why they couldn't bring back Woolly World late in the life cycle.
Yes and no, because like I kind of also just want a new Yoshi game as well. Like I think I would just like a new Yoshi game.
We'll get one too. I just think it's like this era of like this last year having been all like just remakes and re-releases, I think will continue is what I'm saying.
Okay.
I think that's what I'm getting at is that like the Switch, the original Switch is going to continue to get new games. And I think they're all going to be re-releases. And it's like, and so it's just like a lot of the new stuff will be coming out just for the new system. And we'll keep seeing this stuff coming. You know, like if this Robobot stuff is to be believed, I think in addition to Wii U games that are still remaining, we'll still see 3DS games being ported. You know, I'm talking Tamagotchi Life. I'm talking, you know, some of these like, so what do you want me to say?
Samus Returns.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think that these will be games that will be released for the original Switch. So I don't think that we'll lose games coming out for the original Switch for the next 2 to 3 years, honestly.
Oh, really? That long? I was going to say, I could see it being through the end of this year. But
where do you think Just Dance is going to be on the original Switch for at least 10 more years?
Well, look at indies, you know, like a lot of indies don't need a you know, whatever the teraflops the fucking new Switch has on whatever that ARM architecture is. Like there's going to be a lot of games that are releasing just not official Nintendo ones necessarily, but we're going to see a ton of eShop support for the original Switch going for who knows ad infinitum as long as the systems are cross compatible.
Right. It is truly starting to feel like a 3DS, new 3DS situation where it'll just be something in the shop that tells you if the software you're trying to buy, or it just won't even be visible on the Switch, right? Whereas the shop on the new Switch will just include titles from the Switch. Because I think that's how the new 3DS shop functioned.
Something like that.
It was the same shop for both the 3DS and the new 3DS, and you could just only see the new 3DS titles in the shop for the new 3DS. Not that it was like a ton, but yeah, I could kind of see this being that direction.
Well, then I think that takes us to talking about the Switch 2 finally. I guess there are two big things that we know from Nintendo, and that is that they are going to make the announcement by March, the end of the quarter there.
March 31st, yeah.
The announcement.
The end of March. And the announcement, right, about it. And then that it is backwards compatible. And we've been talking about that part. So knowing that they are definitely going to announce it by the end of March. It seems to me like everybody here thinks it's going to happen earlier than that, but is there anybody who has any thoughts about this? Is it going to be right, soon? Are we counting down the days, or are we counting down months here?
I think it will be in the month of January at some point. That is when I think they will announce it, and it will release by March or April. That's just what my gut says.
Summer or David?
I'm unsure. I think they could. I think they said the end of Q4 specifically so they could do it in March, just for whenever they're really ready. That being said, if somebody leaks more, information before they get to it, then they might have to. They may force their hand.
Yeah.
We might just get it in the form of a tweet that says, "This is Furukawa. This is the Switch 2."
What's funny, a lot of people keep going back to the reveal in January, release in March thing, but it's also easy to forget that Nintendo announced the original Switch in October of 2016. The January presentation was like a live on-stage presentation where they showed off all its functionality, in addition to the hybrid nature that we had already seen with the, Karen on the rooftop trailer, right? So it's not going to be a one-to-one, even if they do reveal it in January necessarily, right? If they reveal it in January, it doesn't mean we're just gonna be following that same pattern, because it would have already been revealed at this point, right? You could, I guess, argue that those tweets where it's like, it's coming and it will be revealed around this time was the October reveal, you know what I mean? And then it will kind of follow that pattern. Either way, I do think that a January reveal and March release makes a ton of sense. I think that
together.
Yeah, and if not March, then early April, The reason I think releasing in March makes a ton of sense is the same reason that it worked for the Switch. And that's because Japan has Golden Week, which is at the beginning of April. It's at the beginning of the new financial year, right? And so everybody being off, everybody being on vacation, everybody having time to actually play their games makes a ton of sense in that regard. But also, speaking on a global market, I think it makes sense for them to release in April because that means a whole year of sales, because you'll have that 7 million, if that's rumored to be true, the amount that they're going to have day one, that's going to sell out within a few weeks. You know what I mean? I think they're going to run through that really quickly. And then it'll be this kind of slow build up to December and holiday season. And then they get a second big push as well, right? So then 2 enormous pushes for the system in 1 year, I think is what made the Switch so successful in the first place. And I think that they are going to want to replicate that. And if everything we're hearing about the Switch is to be believed, it's that this is an iterative system, right? That it's the Switch logo with a big 2 next to it, right? And I think that, people are worried. It's oh, well, the Wii U just put a U next to it and people didn't realize it was a new Switch. Well, the number 2 very clearly says to an international audience that this is PS1 to PS2.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
This is a generational difference, right? They want to copy as much of what the Switch did well this second go around. And I really see that lining up perfectly. Some of that is tainted by me just wanting my hands on this as soon as I possibly can fucking have it, but I really think that is most likely to be the case.
I don't think there's ever been a situation where the letter U meant a sequel.
Yeah, no, of course not. Yeah.
The Wii U is the only instance of that, and that's why no one knew what it was.
Yeah, and it just sounded like PU, and everybody just walked away.
Yeah.
I think also it being an iterative system makes more sense for less of a buildup, because they're not having to explain all over again whatever new crazy feature they cooked up this time. It's it's a Switch 2, it's more powerful, the games look better, it probably runs in 4K. You know the deal. It's not going to have to be oh, I have to explain to you how a Wii remote works.
Right.
It's oh, okay. We already all are accustomed to this. That's it. So they can kind of get away with it.
Well, I tend to agree. I mean, I there's part of me that, just to be contrarian, wants to say it'll come later in the year, but I don't think that's very likely. But
Fight that urge. It's okay to be homogenized, Patrick. Yeah.
I really feel like April-ish sounds good. And I hope that that's true. But if we all agree with that, or if we've said our piece for that, maybe we can talk about launch / 2025 titles. I think, Jordan, is there one that you want to maybe share?
I think the main thing that makes the most sense is obviously a new Mario title, whether that's an Odyssey 2 or whatever that looks like in the new generation of the Switch. Definitely got to be the launch title for this. There's no new Zelda. We know no new Zelda is coming. We know a Pokemon's coming. We don't know exactly when it's coming. I don't really see that as being a launch title. I just don't ever remember Pokemon's being launch titles. So to me, it's just like, it's got to be Mario. I don't know what they're cooking up over there, but whatever new Mario title is going to be a day one release for the new system.
I'll tell you who doesn't believe that. Samus Hunter.
I don't believe Samus Hunter anyway. So
yeah, okay. All right, cool. That's fine.
Because I'm on board. I want a 3D Mario being the launch game. I think I want it to be a new 3D Mario too,
and an exclusive to Switch 2 3D Mario.
Yes,
game. Yeah,
like takes advantage of the capabilities. Looks amazing. I want it to not be Odyssey 2. I'd be happy if it's Odyssey 2 because I loved Odyssey, but just a new 3D Mario adventure is what I'm hoping for, if I can be honest, like a new title.
What if it's Galaxy 3?
No.
Do you guys don't want that? I want that.
It'd be cool.
I'd be fine with it. It's just I want a new like Mario blank, something that
Mario Iliad.
Right, like what word goes beyond Galaxy or Odyssey? I mean, I guess Odyssey is like more of an event, but
it's Mario's down home little adventure.
That sounds bad, actually. I want that sounds too like simple,
I want the Pac-Man 2 of Mario games where you don't even play as Mario, you just throw little fruits for him to go eat. Anyway, that's for my Pac-Man 2 heads. But
I think that makes a lot of sense. But the other game that also makes a lot of sense that a lot of people think is the Mario Kart game, a new Mario Kart. Whether it's 9 or 10 or whatever, or Mario Kart Infinity or whatever they call it. It's been forever. That could be a big launch game too. Exclusive to the Switch 2, right? Another thing to push people to the Switch 2.
Yeah.
I don't know. For some reason, the Mario Kart, it doesn't feel right to me.
Doesn't feel right to me either.
Feels like a summer game. Feels like, early summer, let people kind of chew on the Mario game for a little while and then it'll come out after.
I agree. And also, so does Samus Hunter. But beside the point.
What does Samus Hunter think is coming? Right
I don't know. Samus Hunter's just been posting GIFs of Shigeru Miyamoto saying no. But anyway, I agree with you, Jordan. I think that you don't launch with Mario Kart because it doesn't need to launch with Mario Kart. Yeah. You release Mario Kart when you know there's going to be a slump in sales. You know what I mean? Because Mario Kart is a system seller. Right. The Switch 2 launch by itself is a system seller. And then the holiday season is a system seller. I think that you release it in like July, right? Or like you said, in the summer when stuff is like a little bit on a downslope, get a bunch of stuff and then you include it in a bundle in the holiday, right? I think that's what they did last time. And that's what they'll do this time. I think that, what was it? It was like May, I think, maybe even that Mario Kart DX released on the Switch. I could see May being released, or maybe not even in the first year. If they've got enough shit, people will be playing Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on their fucking Switch 2s as well, because they'll be going through all their backlogs and playing all their games and seeing how good they look upscaled, right? So it's like, I don't think that they're in any rush to release it. I know people very much disagree with that, but I don't think that it'll be coming on day one.
So interesting.
Mario Kart 8 Deluxe came out on April in 2017.
At the end of April, though.
Yeah, the end of April.
What if we just get Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Mega Plus?
Oh my
Ultimate.
God.
I would actually be pretty mad about that. If that was the case.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. One last thing on the Mario Kart before we move on. If they do a new Mario Kart and the new gimmick is something where it's like all Nintendo franchises kart, because that's kind of how Mario Kart 8 was leaning with like the addition of Link, Villager, Isabelle, like all these different characters from different Donkey Kong even added in, even though we already had Donkey Kong, but even more Donkey Kong characters. that's kind of what it feels like this is trending, like adding like maybe Olimar, maybe adding some Fire Emblem characters, etc. So if they do that as like the new gimmick, are they still going to call it Mario Kart? Maybe we never get a Mario Kart again.
I think you call it, well, first of all, I think that Mario Kart 9 already exists and it was Mario Kart Tour.
I agree with that.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I think they call it Mario Kart.
And that was home circuit. So this is 11.
I think, well, maybe.
I'm totally joking.
But I don't think they want to pass on the opportunity to call it Mario Kart X, because Mario Kart X means Mario Kart 10 and it means cross, because it means cross with all the other,
big brain
all the other things.
Here.
So it's like, you call it Mario Kart X, Mario Kart Cross, Mario Kart 10. You can call it whatever you want. It all means the same thing, which is Nintendo Kart, right? Like,
brain.
I think that is going to be, I completely agree. We were talking about this. We did a Secret Santa recently, and we talked about this when we were playing Mario Kart afterwards. It's like, where do they possibly go from here, right? I think it's like, yeah, you bring everybody in. You open the portal to the Nintendo universe, and everybody comes flooding in, right? And yeah, like you said, they already started doing that, and I think that they would have done that on the Switch if they didn't realize they could just make $1 million fucking every day by just re-releasing Mario Kart 8 again, right? So yeah, I completely think that that's what it's going to be.
Well, what other titles do y'all think are coming out at launch and or just over the course of the rest of 2025?
Splatoon 4.
Think so?
With such a big, like, kind of finale event happening last year, I mean, I'd like to get thoughts on that, but that is like,
I could see July or August.
it is considered.
4.
Yes, it is like to me, it feels like a summer game. I realize that the last one came out in September, and maybe that's something that they will aim for. Or like that's like the latest. Like, let's get it out by September. But especially because they've been pushing. I shouldn't say pushing because it's really done it on its own. But Splatoon is considered part of their big 4, so we do need to be like considering that, right? Like Mario, Zelda, Animal Crossing, and Splatoon. I think Splatoon 4 within the first few months. Maybe not a launch title. I think it would be cool if it was a launch title. I think it would be within the first couple of months. Definitely like a summer break game.
Yeah. I don't really want it to be a launch title. And I look, I think that they will have a cool launch title, but I kind of like don't want them. Like, I don't think they need a really spectacular launch title. You know what I mean? Again, I think that the system itself is the launch title.
Sure.
You know what I mean? For a lot of people. But yeah, I mean, it would be great if they did, because obviously they've got a bunch of games built up, and it would be really great to launch with something nice. But yeah.
No, historically, I think Breath of the Wild is really one of the only like launch titles that we've gotten on a Nintendo system, right? Most other games that are like the games for systems came out like in the first like month or two.
Twilight Princess is kind of also one, right, with the Wii and GameCube, because that also straddled on release day, right?
Yes, but the GameCube is the way to play that game, so I don't know if it's the release title for the Wii either. Joking aside on that, though, I see that like first couple months though.
If it's the Super Nintendo Switch launching with a new Mario game, makes sense. That's what they did with the Super Nintendo, right?
And also a new F-Zero game.
Oh, is that your prediction? You really think in the first year we're going to get a new F-Zero?
No, I'm sorry. I just wanted to say it to make you happy, David. I'm sorry.
I'm sad.
The language has really shifted to discussing Switch 2. David, you had mentioned it before. You said we have seen like a logo with just like a 2 next to it. That's confirmed.
I mean, that's what the guy who says he has one and is releasing stuff on Christmas says. It's the one with the 2 next to it. I mean, all of the leaks are saying that the logo is just, the Switch logo is slightly over to the left, and there's a 2 next to it, and it says Nintendo Switch underneath. Right? Like that's the rumor. That's what all the manufacturers are saying. That's what all the people that say they've seen the console are saying.
If that's true, I don't think we're ever getting a Tomodachi Life game again. The reason I say that is because if the next system is called a Switch 2, I think everything that's like quirky and whimsical is gonna kind of just fade away.
Well, why is it? Why do you say that?
Because the Switch 2 is not like a fun title for a next system. Nintendo has never done that before. It is entirely a new thing for them to do. All of the messaging.
Are you saying Nintendo's going to lose its special sauce, Summer?
I feel like we've already been trending in that way based on the way Furukawa has been communicating to us.
This is Furukawa. Nintendo has lost its mojo.
I'm not going to go that far on it. I think Nintendo is always going to be Nintendo. I think it would be great if it wasn't another system that releases with a controller with 3 prongs on it and has a weird fucking blah, 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 but it's like, I think Nintendo's quirkiness and their game design, I don't think that's going anywhere. And I think we're seeing with the new generation of developers, like we've seen with, a lot of the people that are putting out Animal Crossing and Splatoon games, that they're quirkier than ever. I mean, like that gives me hope for new Nintendo franchises and the quirkiness.
I want to be wrong. I want to be wrong.
Yeah. Man, I do also just want to see Tomodachi Life come back.
I do too, but as much as I love the Switch, I don't know that like a lot of titles have the same quirkiness that like maybe resonated with me as much with like the 3DS and Wii.
Can I make a prediction that is kind of a quirky game that might be a launch title that we already know about? And it's the MMO that they did the play test for. What if that is a Switch 2 exclusive NSO launch for the new system?
Oh, so it's like an NSO exclusive is what you're saying.
Yeah, you have to pay for NSO. You have to have the Switch 2.
Mm-hmm. I hear that.
It comes out day one. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think you're on the money.
I'm in. I don't know if day one is the case unless there's a price bump for NSO on Switch 2. I could see that being a draw, right? Because otherwise maybe not. Like a new console and that. And you know what I mean? Like to have an excuse to make a price. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't be talking about price jumps for NSO. That it gets a little iffy because it's right in the middle of a lot of people's like year-long subscriptions that are already going. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I don't know. For me, I see that a little bit later in the year, but that would be cool if that was a launch game.
I don't think there's going to be a price bump in NSO, if only for the fact that, like, didn't they eat like the first year of NSO for everybody? You just got it for free, or you could play online for free. So I think they're okay eating that for a little while. And so I don't think they're going to jump up NSO, but I think NSO will go up within the first 2 years of the Super Switch 2 life. Like, I think it will go up. Yeah. And also on that note, I think all games are going to be $70 moving forward.
Oh, 100%.
Like, no question. Like, Tears
Switch
of the Kingdom.
Switch 2 games that'll be the difference. It's like a game that releases for the original Switch will still be 60, and then everything on Switch 2 will be 70.
We did see that with the PlayStation. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. No, I can totally see that. I do think we will be getting I don't know if that we'll be getting a brand new F-Zero right away, but I could see F-Zero GX coming out for Switch in the year of the Switch 2's release. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I could see that dropping like randomly, or even especially if they're like, say there's like a February Direct or something like that. And they're like, F-Zero GX is coming out and the next F-Zero game is coming to Switch 2 in next year or whatever, right? Like, it'll be like kind of like here's for the original Switch fans, but if you want to play the new F-Zero game, you better get the new system. But that's a little ways away. You got time to save up. You know what I mean?
Dude, I really hate to say this, David, but I really think they're going to do F-Zero GX, and the whole F-Zero 99 boost was just so that they can add F-Zero characters into Mario Kart X. And it'll like make sense, but I don't know if there's a new F-Zero. I think it's literally just to bring brand recognition and add those characters into a Mario Kart game.
That's fine. You can continue to live in your pit of despair. I'm going to live in the utopian paradise I've built in my mind.
Of F-Zero. That's a very utopic world.
Yeah. What other games do we see launching for Switch 2?
I've been saying this. I don't know that it's for sure, but I could see an Animal Crossing coming in the first year of or in that year, this year. I know that historically that may not be true, but I could see that being a reason, just another thing to try to get people to move over to this.
What do you see coming first, Splatoon 4 or new Animal Crossing?
I hope it's Animal Crossing.
Oh, yeah. Really?
I hope, because I want a break from Splatoon. I don't want to be drawn back in.
No.
That's a very selfish way to look at it, Patrick.
It's true.
I see, I think a Splatoon game is coming first. I'm over here like way too attached to my island still, even though I don't log in all the time. So I'm over here like, what if we got like a Switch 2 exclusive expansion to New Horizons? It's just like more Horizons. I don't know.
Yo,
Horizon with the S is a dollar sign at the end.
Oh my god!
Like Aliens.
Horizons. I could see like a deluxe edition, but with including the DLC.
It's like an upgrade
then,
or something.
Like adding more items would be sick. But I
kind of see that too.
Like I could see them doing that within the first year. But if they don't do that, like I really don't see an Animal Crossing for like 3 years. Like
yeah. A lot of people think it's first year, and I'm not trying to poo-poo on you, Patrick, but I think they took the extra time to cook with New Horizon, and still that was still a little underdone, I think, according to most fans, especially compared to like New Leaf, which felt so filled with features and stuff that New Horizons was kind of lacking, So I could see them wanting to cook a little bit longer, go to Splatoon 4 instead, like around summer, and then kind of like maybe year 2, new Animal Crossing comes out.
I think it makes sense for that to happen. I just hope it's the other
I
way.
hear your I hear your hope. I could see us getting like a spin-off Animal Crossing game maybe within the first year. Just something else that's like, these characters that you love, and we know so many of you own New Horizons, and not that it'll do well. What was the board game was that on the Wii U?
Amiibo Festival.
Or Happy Home Designer?
No, Happy Home Designer did well. There was like a game. I think Amiibo Festival was still just like the expansion to the 3DS. I'm talking about they tried to do like a Mario Party game, but with Animal Crossing.
That was Amiibo Festival.
That was Amiibo Festival? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was not. It
was a completely forgettable, terrible game. So it doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I hope I'm right on that. But
yes, you're right.
Yes, let's go. Let's drop Amiibo Festival. But I don't know. I do think either way we'll be getting some Animal Crossing soon. I like the idea of a spinoff in year 1. But I think kind of lastly, before we kind of start talking about the system itself, I think that we will be seeing Star Fox. I know like nobody fucking agrees with me. I know like AV doesn't agree with me. I know Jordan doesn't agree with me. I know Cool Uncle Vince doesn't agree with me. But I think we will be seeing a Star Fox within the first year of the Switch 2 releasing. That's either a new game for the new system, or that is re-releasing Star Fox Zero for the Switch, the original Switch. But I think we will be I don't think they want to go too much into this new life cycle of this new system without reminding us of that franchise. We've been getting little drops every once in a while on NSO, and we got Star Fox 2 and all that kind of stuff on NSO, and so I do think it will happen. I just think even if it's just like a little thing to remind us, we'll be getting something for Star Fox.
Well, what else about the Switch 2? Because there's maybe features. I mean, it sounds like all the leaks make it sound like we've already discussed that it's just purely an iteration. So my gut tells me there's nothing whack, crazy different about this based on that information. Now there is talk about a port on the top, so maybe the craziness could be attachments or peripherals that are optional or down the line or for specific games. I don't know if that makes sense to y'all, or if you have another, or if we do think there is something unique or different about this system or new features.
I think these Switch attach rumors were true. I think that that's what the top USB is. I think that we'll see a number of peripherals released for the system. I think one of them is obviously going to be a camera or a microphone. There might actually already be a microphone on the system. There are a couple small little slots we've seen on the system where we're like, are those speaker grills? What is that? Is that something where something hooks in? What is it? I think it might be 2 microphones built in already on the system.
2.
And if that's the case, I think there's also this question as to like attachments and peripherals and whatever they might be using the top USB for also kind of goes hand in hand with what that C button is, right? Now, I feel that could be any number of things. We could maybe go through what some of those are right now. People have thought camera, people have thought cast to the dock or whatever. I kind of personally think it's chat. I think that it is either a push to talk button for the microphone that's already on it, if you like long hold it, or if you have that feature turned on, you could use it for that purpose, or it pulls up an overlay for friend, chat, stuff like that, right? If we're going forward in this era of Furukawa, where they're kind of going back into caring about power, going back into PS2, going back into what a Western audience wants out of a Nintendo console, and not necessarily what the Japanese audience or the the Iwata era wants out of a Nintendo console. I could see that being a very good reason why you actually have that be a bespoke third button, right? I don't think it's a capture button because we've already got one, and why would it have a C on it? I think it's chat. That's what I think, but I don't know what you guys think about that.
I think it's kind of all of the above. Like, I feel like it's going to be a customizable button that like refers to whatever peripheral you have plugged in at that moment. Or yeah, like what David is saying, you can have it just be that. But I feel like it's going to be related to any sort of peripheral, and every peripheral is going to use a button differently. That's kind of what my
maybe it's
is.
like control, it like means control maybe, or customize. Yeah. Anybody else on either the USB or the C button?
I want to say if they do add a camera, I would love to see Game Boy camera come to the NSO so you can take like those pixelated shitty photos, because I have spent way too much fucking time looking into how to do that now, and it's like not that complicated, but it is more complicated than I want to deal with. Especially like getting the photos off of your Game Boy involves like basically a save state reader and
or a Game Boy player or something like, or the GB player or whatever. Yeah,
exactly. I'm like, this is too complicated. I would love if the camera got added in, and then they also added Game Boy camera to the NSO.
Oh, to NSO? That is actually pretty lit.
That'd be so sick.
Yeah. Either way, I think, there will be a camera add-on. But yeah, what do you think about that, Weebutch?
I think the idea of a camera being an add-on and not something that's just like in it, but I guess it takes a lot of space in the actual thing itself. I don't know.
It also kind of, you run into like people worried that the system's always watching them, and kids accidentally sharing pictures of themselves playing the game online. Like if it's a camera add-on, then parents can just not buy that add-on for their kids. You know what I mean?
Because then we get into specs and like, are we going to have like different lens options on this thing? Are we actually getting into like that level of territory?
No.
Nah.
I see a camera behaving like you could use it to like video chat or whatever, but I think it's also like almost like a Kinect style thing for when you put the Switch in the dock, because there's also a lot of talk about the dock, and a lot of people have been saying that in addition to having a built-in GPU, or maybe it is its own thing that can cast to the dock, like people are talking about how the front of the dock doesn't cover the whole front of the Switch, and that while it's docked, you've got a little readout on top of the dock, on top of the screen, basically, that peeks out over the dock. So if that's the case, you're going to want that in front of your TV, like facing you. And if that's the case, then also putting a little camera on top would allow for games that utilize your whole body or whatever, right? So you could kind of use it almost kind of like a Kinect, right? So I see a camera being added on mostly as a docked experience, right? But it also just having that up there means that you can add things to the Switch while it's docked, you know what I mean? Or you can add a second screen on if we're going with Switch attach and do DS games or whatever, right? We've talked about that a number of times, but I could see there being, most of the games are just made for the fucking Switch, but you've got it up there if you want it. It's kind of like, the expansion pack for the N64 or any number of little ports that they've added that barely get used on old systems, but you have the potential to add on if you want to.
Give me a card reader. Let's go. Okay.
Yeah. That's what the C stands for.
Yeah. It stands for card. I'm swiping my card and I'm getting micro games, and I'm using it's compatible with your old trading cards that you had.
It's compatible with Minecraft Dungeons.
It's compatible with Minecraft Dungeons, and I can pay with my credit card instead of having it saved on my system.
I do not want the ability to swipe a credit card into my machine. That's a little dystopian. It would be
tap to pay anyway. Like they already have the NFC. Like
that's true.
It would just be like Amiibo.
That's true. Do we see Amiibo support continuing for the Switch too?
Better be.
If everything's cross
right?
cross-compatible, backwards
Yeah.
compatible, then yeah, you kind of would need that.
Mm-hmm.
I
Sure.
feel like they might include compatibility, but never make another amiibo. And
Mm.
then the next system, the Nintendo Switch 3, no amiibo support whatsoever.
I kind of feel it's time to pull the rug on Amiibo, but yeah.
I think so too. That's why I'm like, they might just pull it on this gen.
Makes sense. If your old controllers still work with it, you could just use your Joy-Cons for the, you know what I mean? Or your Pro controller, right?
Well, yeah. Anything else on the Switch 2 like that we want to hit here before we move on?
Maybe NSO. We've talked a little bit about it. Do we think they're going to be adding other systems? Do you think we see Virtual Boy, DS, 3DS, GameCube?
Okay. I think we might get Virtual Boy. I am sticking to that one. I think that would be a very funny get.
Mhm.
I am definitely anti getting a GameCube one. I don't think it's happening just because we've gotten so many GameCube games already that like what would even really be left for a GameCube channel.
We got a whole episode going through everything that's left.
F-Zero GX.
Yeah, like what's left that we actually think would be realistic that they would put through based on like the trends that they've done so far on the other systems. That's my opinion. But Virtual Boy, I'm on that one.
What do you think, Patrick?
I don't think they're going to do much to NSO, to be honest, with launching. I feel like they want a smooth transition that keeps people happy on both sides. The one thing I do still think is that there could be maybe some exclusive game in that MMO. Maybe it's cross-plat, Switch, whatever, but I could see that tying in around here. And if they did really want to put it on the Switch too, maybe something like that. But I don't, we've talked about this. I don't know. They went hard on NSO here recently on all these sort of weird spin-off things. I'm not sure what else they do, other than maybe just try to keep as many people on it as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think if anything, like it may be DS, and this is my wild swing for the fences, is adding Dreamcast, because we have Genesis. So I feel like they start dipping into another company's backlog that doesn't currently make hardware. That is my like wild swing for the fences prediction.
Sadly, I don't think that's true, just because a lot of the rumors now is that Sega's trying to launch their own subscription service. And that's why they pulled all the games from their own. They had the Genesis collection that they pulled, and they also pulled all the Dreamcast collection games that were on Steam and everything. So I doubt that, just because I think they're going to be doing their own thing. So pony up if you want Dreamcast games, because it's not going to be included with NSO. I can't see that happening, but I don't know. I could definitely see them doing some pretty interesting stuff, but I'd love to see something completely unique, like we saw with that online playtest. I'd like to see them experiment more with the service, because clearly that is a big focus for them going forward. And as these Nintendo eShop accounts continue to be linked and all your purchases go over, I feel like they're going to be taking some more big swings. And maybe like as we're wrapping up, like outside of Switch, even, do you guys see Nintendo doing anything crazy this year? Obviously we've got theme parks, we've got movies, we've got all this different shit. It's a multimedia franchise now. It's not just a video game company.
Yeah.
Like,
And
do you see what do you see outside of Switch that Nintendo might do?
especially with the Alarmo, it almost feels like nothing is off the table.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm over here like wondering, okay, we got Alarmo. Are we gonna get like a coffee maker that hooks up with the Alarmo? And then we've got like a subscription bean service where we get like different themed beans every month from different franchises or characters. That's you want to talk about swinging from out to left field.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Give me the Nintendo coffee beans.
Yeah.
The
Instead
monthly
of
box service is,
they'll go from trying to be a trade coffee competitor into being a BetterHelp competitor. There'll be Nintendo therapists that you can get through NSO.
The existence of NSO, Nintendo Switch Online, implies the existence of Nintendo Switch IRL or like in like
Offline.
yeah
Offline.
Well, it can't be offline because that's an O, so it can't be another NSO. It's got to be like NSI.
I like NSI. Yeah.
Right. So now we've got like an in-person that isn't just the parks, like integration into our lives. And I see a doctor that's within like the Nintendo network, and
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
like,
Yes, better help.
I'm going to be insured through Nintendo. And
Yes. Oh my
Pokemon.
God.
If
Luigi. Luigi.
if I keep up with Nintendo Smile, I get a discount on my root canal, and like.
Oh my God, this is getting pretty dark.
Jeez.
My last big swing that I'll say is this finally the year for the N64 Classic?
Oh, no. Sorry, but I don't think so either because of the NSO N64. But I guess we do have all that. It could, man, I don't know. It could
Let's
be.
do it.
Let's do it. Fuck it. Why not? Let's go.
Oh, my final swing. Birdo game.
Yes.
Yo.
Oh, I want Birdo so bad.
I think she could get a game, man.
I've got
You're
so many
Birdo.
pitches. Nintendo, hit me up.
I think Birdo will definitely get a game before Waluigi.
Yeah,
Like 100%.
yeah.
I see a game where Waluigi and Birdo are dating and they're just like arguing all the time.
If that's true, then the cork is so back. Like we are so back.
All right. Well, this is as good a time as any for us to end this conversation on Nintendo's 2025. We'd love to hear what you think is coming in 2025. If you've got any predictions or hopes that we didn't get to. So with that, we're going to end the episode. Thanks so much to MilkyWay.co, who does our website. Thanks to Corduroy, who does our music. If you're looking for me online, you can find me as PDYX.
You can find me at WeBewitched.
You can find me online at Bordan.
I'm pretty much ever on the internet at Monolith Fiji. And if you'd like to find our show on social media, we are at Switch Headz on Blue Sky and Twitter. We are at Super Switch Headz on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We have a website, switchheads.com, and we have a Discord, a Facebook group, and a Patreon. If you'd like to support us financially, we'll have links to all three of those in the description of this episode. Whether you're watching it on YouTube or you're listening to it on Apple or Spotify, please like and subscribe over there. Leave us a review on Apple or Spotify. We'd love that. And please share the show with a friend and join us over there on the Discord. We have such a great time on the Discord, such a wonderful community, and we'd love to see you there as well. That's going to do it on this episode. Yeah, like Patrick said, leave your thoughts below. We didn't even get to other gaming news with the rest of the industry. If you've got any thoughts on the rest of the industry, leave that down in the comments below, and maybe we can talk about some of those next week. But other than that, you guys know the drill. Stay safe out there. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to one another. It's a new year. It's a new lease on life. It's going to be a hard one, gang. Starting January 20, this world's going to be a little bit different. So let's all keep our heads on our shoulders, why don't we? And let's all make 2025 one that we can be proud of and look back on with joy, and not the year that our democracy finally crumbled. All right, that's going to do it. Much love, everybody. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.